Hey guys, what's up? As I said before in my last video, I will not be able to post once a week like I was before because I am now working full-time and I don't have as much time as I used to. I'm still going to attempt to post multiple times throughout the month, at least twice a month. That is my goal currently. So anyway, I just want to talk to you guys a bit about Esther. Oh, Esther. She's a very interesting character, and oftentimes I feel like she is underestimated. She is one of the only women in the Bible that a book is written about. There are only 2 books in the Bible named after women. That is Ruth and Esther. I love Ruth. I loved her growing up. She was probably my favorite Bible story as a kid. And then Esther, recently God's been talking to me a lot about Esther. There's this one verse in particular that has really stood out to me lately, and it is Esther 4, I'm going to read 2 verses, but I'm really focusing on the second verse, which is verse 14. The context is, just so I don't have to read the entire passage, Esther is a queen. She married King Xerxes, and she is a Jew, but the king does not know she's a Jew. And one of the king's servant, he's like a serpent, and one of the king's, he's not really a servant, he's kind of like an advisor, I guess you could say. His name's Haman, and he plots to destroy the entire Jewish race. So Mordecai, Esther's uncle, comes to her with this information, and he is asking her to go before the king. Now, in this time, if you went before the king without being beckoned, you were put to death. You were killed like that. It did not matter who you were. It didn't matter what your rank was. You were not allowed to go before the king unless he beckoned you. And so Mordecai is asking Esther to go before the king, and if the king lowers his scepter to whoever comes before him, even though they didn't come with permission, then they will be saved. So he's asking Esther to go before the king and make a request on the behalf of the Jews and to save the Jewish people. And so in this verse, it says, and Mordecai told them to answer Esther. So when Esther was asking what she was to do, he said, "Do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace from any more than all the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent at this time, a relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this." So in this verse, the part I want to focus on is where he says, "Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this." That verse has meant so much to me throughout my entire life, and even more so now. I am learning a lot when it comes to what God wants to do with my life, and there's no path that's clear. It's not going to be a clear path, and that's okay. I mean, God may reveal a clear path, and he may tell you exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to happen, but that's highly unlikely and extremely rare. Esther had no idea that she was going to be a queen. She was originally just a Jewish girl who was a nobody. She was just a pretty girl, and it was basically like The Bachelor. The king had lost his queen, and he had a bunch of women come in, and he picked which one he wanted, and he picked Esther. And so it wasn't by chance, but it seems like it was by chance, because out of all the people, he could have picked anybody in his entire country, any beautiful lady or any beautiful girl, and he picked her. And she had no idea why. Why was she chosen for this? Why was she taken from her people? Because in the castle, she was not among her own kind. She was among a race of a different kind. She wasn't among Jews anymore. She was secluded. She was set apart. And I just love that about Esther, because just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're going to fit in with other Christians. And I'm saying that from experience. Just because you believe in God doesn't mean that you are going to belong working in the church. Sometimes your calling has nothing to do with the church, but it has everything to do with reaching out and spreading God's love. So ultimately, our calling is to be like Christ. There's no rhyme or reason to it from our end. God sees the rhyme and reason. He sees our path, but we can't see it on our end because we can't see the whole story. He has a plan. He has more to the story, but you won't know that. You won't know what's more to the story until the end. And that is how it's meant to be. So I just want to end on that note. Esther didn't know. And I think that is the best example that is the best example I've seen in the Bible, where someone clearly did not know why they were where they were and what their calling was. They had no idea what God's plan was, but they decided to take a chance anyway and say, hey, God, I'm going to step out in faith and I'm going to trust you to catch me, even if I'm not sure. And so she did step out and she went to the king and he reached out his scepter and she didn't die. Even though she could have died, she took the risk. Anyway, I just want to encourage you guys, be risk takers. Don't be afraid of what's going to happen in the future. Don't be afraid to take that chance, because you don't know what may be lying on the other side. You could be the answer that you've been looking for this entire time. You could be the hero. You just don't know it yet. So don't ever be afraid to take those risks. You go out there and you go get them. You go get them. Anyway, I love you guys, and I just wanted to share that with you real quick. I hope you have a great rest of the week. See you next time.